They say that every empire falls, but the greatest battles are not fought in marble halls or on blood-soaked fields. They are fought within the mind. Rain begins to fall. The camera pans over an ancient Roman encampment. Soldiers sharpening blades under torchlight. Armor gleaming, the air thick with tension. In the heart of the Roman Empire, there lived a man who ruled over millions, yet could not escape the one enemy that stalks us all, the self. Marcus Aurelius, philosopher, warrior, emperor, spent his life not in pursuit of power but in conquest of the inner world. For he knew what few truly understand. The greatest war ever fought was never on the battlefield, but within the mind of man. When the storms of doubt rage, when life pulls you between duty and desire, it is not the world that must bend. It is you who must stand unshaken. Marcus wrote to himself, "You have power over your mind, that not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Cut to a modern scene awake a man in a crowded subway, headphones in, anxiety in his eyes. The roar of traffic replaces the Roman drums. The wars have changed, but the battles remain the same. Every generation inherits the same challenge, to master oneself amidst chaos. The Stoics knew that the true measure of greatness was not fame, wealth, or conquest, but discipline, virtue, and clarity of mind. The candle flame flickers again, and we're back in the tent of Marcus Aurelius. The emperor sits alone, writing by lamplight. Outside, thunder shakes the earth. He writes not for glory, but for remembrance, not of himself, but of what it means to be human. It is here that Stoicism begins, not as cold philosophy, but as medicine for the soul. A way of seeing the world that steadies the heart when everything seems lost. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And how true that is. We forge prisons from our fears, we create enemies in our own reflections, and we forget that the mind is the one thing always within our control. Visuals shift. Sand dunes. Waves crashing, soldiers marching through the mist. The voice grows calm yet commanding. To act as if you are the best is not arrogance, and it is alignment. It is to walk with purpose when the path ahead is uncertain. To hold yourself to a higher standard, not for praise but for peace. When Marcus Aurelius awoke each morning, he reminded himself that the world would test him. People would deceive, events would disappoint. But still he would act with virtue, because greatness to him was not to rule over others, but to rule over himself. The storm outside quiets. The candle burns steady now, its light golden and unwavering. In your own life there are battles invisible to all, moments when no one sees the war inside you. When the easiest path is surrender. But it is in these moments you must act as if you are already victorious. Not because you are, but because you must become. Act as if you are the strongest, and strength will come. Act as if you are disciplined, and discipline will grow. Act as if you are unshaken, and life itself will bend before your calm. The Stoics called this praxis, practice, the daily work of embodying virtue, even before it fully exists within you. As Epictetus taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom is not given by kings or governments. It is earned through mastery of thought, through the refusal to be a slave to impulse, anger, or fear. The camera pans up from the emperor's candle to the vast Roman night sky, constellations glittering like eternal symbols of wisdom. Every sunrise gives you another chance to conquer yourself. Every challenge, another opportunity to sharpen your mind. The Stoics did not seek comfort, they sought clarity. Because in clarity lies power, and in power lies peace. So tonight, as you stand on the battlefield of your own thoughts, remember the words of the philosopher emperor. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius, act as if you are the best, not for the eyes of others, but for the soul that watches silently within.
The world does not need more kings.
It needs more men and women who have conquered themselves. Every morning is a call to arms, not against flesh and blood, but against fear, distraction, and doubt. The world will come for your peace, your thoughts, your composure, and if you are unprepared, it will take them. That is why the Stoics spoke of fortifying the mind. To them, strength was not in muscle or weapon, but in mastery of the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, and not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." It is in this realization that the warrior of virtue is born. the armor forged in silence. The camera pans to Marcus, standing before his soldiers. But the narration shifts inward. The camera fades to his tent where the emperor sits quietly, eyes closed, breathing deeply. The noise of the camp fades away. Before every battle, Marcus prepared his army. But before every day, he prepared himself. He knew that an unguarded mind was more dangerous than an unguarded city. Each thought, each reaction, each emotion, these were the soldiers of the soul. And like any wise general, he commanded them with discipline. The armor of the mind is built not from iron but from awareness. It is the silent strength that allows you to stand firm when the storm arrives. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And how many of our wounds are self-inflicted? Fears that never came true? Worries that never left the mind's shadow? To live like a Stoic is to walk through chaos wearing invisible armor, not cold detachment but calm mastery. The modern battle cut to modern imagery, a man sitting in traffic, gripping the steering wheel. A woman staring at her phone, overwhelmed by notifications. A teenager scrolling endlessly, lost in comparison. Today's wars are quiet. No swords, no legions. Only the endless noise of a world demanding your attention. But the Stoics prepared for this. They taught that every distraction, every insult, every loss is a test. Not of circumstance, but of self. Epictetus reminded his students, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it. This is the essence of Stoic armor, the ability to choose your response. When the world presses against you, the camera zooms in on a single tear rolling down a cheek, not of weakness but of control. The person breathes deeply, releases it, and smiles faintly. That is victory, not the loud triumph of pride, but the quiet mastery of peace. The practice of inner strength is not found in moments of comfort. It is forged in discomfort. Just as the blacksmith's hammer tempers steel, the trials of life shape the soul. You may face insult, chaos, and pain. Yet none of these can touch your mind unless you allow them. Marcus Aurelius practiced this ritual daily. Before dawn, he would rise and write to himself, letters of armor, sentences of steel. He did not write to be remembered. He wrote to remember himself. So too must we build our mental armor, through discipline, reflection, and self-command. Through the courage to pause before we react, through the wisdom to observe before we judge. The Stoics called this prohairesis, the power of inner choice. It is the difference between being ruled by emotion and ruling over it. Visuals, a slow montage, a soldier tightening leather straps on his arm, a woman in meditation, a craftsman shaping metal by fire. Each act of restraint, each moment of awareness, each breath taken instead of a shout. These are the strokes that forge your armor, when the world strikes but armor is tested only in battle. And life, unrelenting, will strike when you least expect it. You will be betrayed. You will lose what you love. You will fail. The Stoics never denied pain, they transcended it. They saw every hardship as the forge of character. Marcus wrote during war, as plague ravaged Rome and his closest friends fell ill. Yet he did not curse fate. He simply wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it." Stop complaining. In that one line lies the core of Stoic power. Endurance without resentment. Pain becomes wisdom when you choose not to resist it. Loss becomes a lesson when you choose not to be broken by it. The music swells, a mix of sorrow and resolve. The candlelight flickers once more on Marcus's table, illuminating the words of his meditations. The calm in the storm. The armor of the mind is not hard, it is flexible. It bends without breaking. It absorbs the blows of fate and still stands unshaken. This is the Stoic way, not to hide from life's pain, but to meet it with dignity. Not to be cold, but to be calm. To act as if you are already the best, because the best does not panic, does not complain, does not crumble. He breathes. He stands. He chooses peace when the world burns. So when the world presses upon you, when storms rise and chaos reigns, remember, you are the commander of your thoughts, the guardian of your emotions, the blacksmith of your soul. Put on your armor each morning, and not of steel but of mind. And when the steel is not born strong, it is born raw, soft, unshaped, and fragile. Only the fire gives it form. Only the hammer gives it strength. So it is with the human soul. We are shaped not by comfort but by discipline. The Stoics understood this, that greatness is never an accident of fate but the consequence of consistency. As Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom begins not in the world, but in the will. The emperor's routine visual. Marcus Aurelius rising before dawn. The room is cold. He sits at his desk, candlelight illuminating parchment. His face calm, his movements deliberate. He was emperor of the most powerful empire on earth. Yet he began each morning not with command, but with contemplation. While the world still slept, he sharpened his mind before he faced the day. At dawn, when you rise unwillingly, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Marcus did not rely on motivation. He relied on discipline. He understood that the mind must be trained like a soldier, to rise, to endure, to act, regardless of feeling. The nature of fire visuals shift, flames roaring higher, the glow reflecting off the blacksmith's face. Then, modern parallels. A man running in rain, a woman studying at 3 a.m., a boxer shadow fighting alone. Fire does not ask for permission to burn, it simply consumes. The disciplined man is the same. He acts because he must. He shows up not when it's easy, but when it's hardest to do so. Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." And preparation, the silent, unseen labor, is the furnace of mastery. Those who wait for perfect conditions never begin. Those who rely on fleeting passion fade when the flame dies. But the Stoic keeps the inner fire burning. Slow, steady, eternal. The sound of the hammer returns, rhythm like a heartbeat. Discipline is not the absence of comfort. It is the choice of growth over ease. The decision to act when the body says no, when the mind whispers later, when fear disguises itself as rest. The modern warrior visual. City lights at night. A young man in a gym, sweat dripping. A woman alone in a small apartment working on her dream. A student closing social media and opening a book. In our age, comfort is the enemy. Distraction is the silent killer of greatness. We live in a world that worships convenience, but the Stoic knows that comfort breeds weakness. Marcus, Seneca, Epictetus, they all trained themselves in discomfort, not out of cruelty but out of freedom. Epictetus was once a slave, and yet he was freer than many kings. Why? Because nothing mastered him, not pain, not temptation, not fear. First tell yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That is discipline, the bridge between intention and identity. To act as if you already are the person you wish to become. When you wake and feel no strength, act as though you are strength itself. When you feel lost, act as though you already know the way. For action shapes belief, not the other way around. The quiet fire. Within narrator, softly, almost meditative. Discipline is not loud. It is not proud. It is the quiet fire that burns unseen. The prayer whispered before battle. The step taken in exhaustion. The work done in solitude. The Stoics did not chase recognition. They chased excellence. They knew that true strength is invisible to most eyes. It lives in the consistency no one applauds, in the choices no one sees. Seneca wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live. To live well is to train constantly, to refine your habits, your speech, your thoughts. To return each day to the forge of the self. Visual, a monk-like focus. A blacksmith removes a glowing sword from fire, its surface gleaming, pure, unyielding. That is what you are becoming, not a product of chance, but a creation of fire. When the flame falters, the fire dims. The hammer slows. The room grows still. Even the strongest grow weary. Even the most disciplined falter. But the Stoics knew that failure is not defeat and it is instruction. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. When you fail, begin again. This was his fire, quiet, moral, relentless. You will fall short. You will break your promises to yourself, but do not despair. The forge welcomes you back. Each day is a new strike of the hammer, a chance to shape what remains unshaped. For discipline is not perfection. It is persistence. Within you burns a sacred fire, a will that cannot be extinguished unless you abandon it yourself. Protect it, feed it, and when the world grows cold and the night grows long, remember this: the disciplined mind does not need permission to rise. It simply does, because the best version of you is not waiting in the future. It is forged right now, in the fire of your actions. The truest mirror does not show the face, and it reveals the soul. The Stoics believed that the highest calling of man was to live in accordance with virtue, to be just, wise, courageous, and disciplined, even when no one is watching. For power fades, beauty fades, fortune turns, but virtue endures. Marcus Aurelius did not ask, "What will they think of me?" He asked instead, "What is the right thing to do?" Because in a world ruled by desire and deceit, virtue is the only anchor that keeps the spirit from drifting. The emperor and the slave scene shifts. The Roman Forum. A slave kneels before Marcus. The crowd is silent. The emperor raises his hand not in punishment but in mercy. The world expected wrath, but Marcus chose restraint, for he knew justice without compassion is tyranny, and power without virtue is corruption. Epictetus, who was once a slave himself, taught that virtue is the only good that cannot be taken away. Chains may bind the body, but not the will. He said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can overpower my will." Virtue, then, is freedom, not the freedom to do what you want, but the freedom to do what is right. Visual. The emperor helps the slave rise. The crowd murmurs in awe. The focus shifts to modern times. A CEO refusing to exploit. A soldier helping a fallen enemy. A man admitting his fault with humility. Virtue has no time or nation. It is the common language of the noble heart. The reflection within the mirror scene returns. Marcus studies his reflection, his expression unreadable. There are two kinds of mirrors in life, one that flatters and one that reveals. The Stoic seeks the latter, for only in honest reflection can growth begin. Seneca wrote, "No man can lead a happy life, or even a tolerable one, without the pursuit of wisdom." To live wisely is to see oneself clearly, to confront one's pride, envy, and weakness without flinching. When you look into the mirror of your actions, what do you see? Do you see integrity or excuse? Do you see humility or hidden pride? The Stoic path begins when you dare to face your true reflection and decide to be better than yesterday. The weight of integrity, virtue, is not found in grand speeches or heroic gestures. It is found in the smallest choices, when no one applauds, when no one knows. The Stoics believe that character is forged in solitude. What you do in private is who you truly are. When temptation whispers no one will see, remember, you will see, and your soul will remember. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That is the mirror of virtue, the courage to live in harmony with your own conscience. Visual. A woman refusing to lie for gain. A man returning lost money. A child learning by example as his father keeps a small unseen promise. Every choice sends ripples through eternity. Virtue does not need recognition, it needs only consistency. Virtue in the modern world scene transitions to a city skyline. Billboards, noise, chaos. People hurry past one another, eyes down, hearts heavy. We live in an age that rewards performance, not principle. We are praised for how we appear, not for who we are, but the Stoics warned of this illusion. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Virtue asks you to slow down, to strip away the masks, the noise, the need to impress, to act with honor even when no one watches, to choose honesty when lies are easier, to show kindness when cruelty is cheaper, to remain just even when the unjust are rewarded. That is strength. That is Stoicism. The quiet reward. Marcus sets down his scroll and walks through his garden. The camera follows his steps through olive trees and sunlight. The reward of virtue is not wealth, nor fame, nor power. It is peace, a mind unshaken by guilt, a heart free from regret. When you live by virtue, you live without fear, for you have nothing to hide and nothing to prove. The Stoics taught that virtue is its own reward. That goodness is not a means to happiness, and it is happiness. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. B1. Visual. The emperor smiles faintly, placing a hand on his heart. The mirror reflects. Every journey, no matter how long, leads to a single moment, the summit. Not of stone, not of sky, but of the self. The Stoics called it ataraxia, tranquility, a state not granted by fortune but forged through mastery. Marcus Aurelius spent a lifetime in storms, of war, of politics, of the soul. Yet even amidst chaos he found peace, because he understood that the summit of life is not found above others. It is found within yourself, the mountain of the mind visual, a slow ascent. The climber pauses midway, looks down, the world below covered in cloud. Every human being climbs this mountain, the mountain of fear, doubt, and desire, and most turn back long before the peak, seduced by comfort, discouraged by pain. But the Stoic continues, not because the climb is easy, but because it is necessary. Difficulties show what men are. The path of virtue is steep. The air of self-discipline is thin, but each step taken against fear, against laziness, against anger, is a victory. For the Stoic, every hardship is a test, every pain a teacher, every fall a lesson in rising. The climber stumbles, kneels, breathes. Then, slowly, he rises again. The summit is silence. When Marcus Aurelius stood alone in his tent, surrounded by empires and enemies, he wrote not to conquer the world, but to conquer himself. He wrote of peace amidst battle, of calm amidst decay. Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul. At the summit of the self, there is silence. The noise of judgment fades. The hunger for validation dies. And what remains is truth. You realize that all along it was never the world you were fighting. It was your own mind, demanding to be still. Visual. The climber reaches a small plateau, sits down, and closes his eyes. The wind stops. The snow falls softly. This is the heart of Stoicism. To find serenity, not by escaping the storm, but by standing calm within it. The unmoved soul. The Stoics did not seek immortality. They sought integrity. They did not seek to be remembered, but to live rightly. Here and now, it is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. To live fully is to be present, to do each act as though it were your last, yet without haste, without fear. The unmoved soul does not chase the future nor mourn the past. It acts with virtue in the moment, because the moment is all that truly exists, a soldier comforting a friend, a mother teaching her child patience, a craftsman perfecting his art in silence. Every act done with intention becomes sacred. Every breath taken with awareness becomes prayer. Every challenge met with calm becomes proof of mastery. The eternal return. Time is like a river made up of the events which happen and a violent stream. For as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away. Everything passes, joy, pain, praise, loss. And yet when you accept this truth, you are unshakable. For what is fleeting cannot enslave the one who accepts it. The Stoic smiles at impermanence because he no longer clings to it. He gives his best and lets the world decide the rest. He loves deeply, knowing love may fade. He works fiercely, knowing all achievements turn to dust. But he does not despair, for his peace was never built on permanence. Visual. The climber stands at the peak now, wind roaring, light flooding the horizon. He has not conquered the mountain. He has become it, the summit within. There is no higher victory than peace, no greater conquest than self-command, and no crown more noble than the quiet mind that fears nothing and desires nothing beyond virtue. This is the summit within, where your thoughts obey you, your heart serves you, and your actions honor what is right. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. Visual. Marcus Aurelius, standing on the balcony of his palace, watching the sun rise over Rome. His armor gleams, but his expression is still. The same serenity shines in the eyes of the climber atop the mountain. Their images overlap. To act as if you are the best is not to boast. It is to live as though the divine spark within you has already awakened. To rise above pettiness, vanity, and fear. To live with dignity. To walk with calm. To die without regret. So when the world tests you, when noise surrounds you and doubt whispers, you carry an empire within, a kingdom no one can rule but you. The greatest war ever fought was never on the battlefield, but within the mind of man, and the greatest victory on is peace.